is Wes, and welcome to This Podcast Is Not For You. To my right is...
Jake.
To my left is...
Peyton.
Oh. Today, we are talking about stories. Quite often on the show, we talk about movies or television shows or books, and we're going to kind of talk about those things in a bigger sense, a macro sense of storytelling in general. Not specific to one medium or the other, just storytelling as a whole. I have a little intro here. I did my best Peyton writing impression, sort of.
Nice.
I wrote it out.
Now he has to.
Now you have to read it.
I have to read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Kind of.
That's part of it.
Okay. If you were to look on social media at what people post about shows and movies, it seems like a large portion tries to make everything that's good seem like it was a life-changing thing.
You're reading. Okay. Whenever I
sometimes-
read yours, I put some emphasis behind it.
People sometimes orient their whole identity around a piece of storytelling.
No, not like Harry Potter.
Not like Harry Potter. Harry Potter, Stranger Things, Star Wars, to name a few. In this episode, we're not going to talk about this aspect of fandom. We're talking about the subject in a more profound way.
Parentheses, hopefully.
Okay.
His take on it.
I said it, hopefully.
I thought you couldn't see it.
Why do you write ha ha ha, snort, snort, snort so many times?
I was just trying to add some character to it.
Stories are a central part of who we are and how we relate to the world around us. The Bible is the original example of this. God speaks to us in the form of a story.
You're supposed to say the previous sentence. Like.
Oh.
God, yeah. It's more like the hopefully thing, but.
So
Just keep going.
stories are a central part of who we
YouTube
are
exclusive content.
and how we relate to the world.
That's what I got. I got that God spoke to
Okay.
us in the form of a story from your gesture.
Perfect. So, no.
No.
So they go beyond just fandom. So do they? No. What? So they go beyond just fandom or really liking something. We're going to try to think about stories that have actually profoundly impacted us in our lives.
That was good.
Thank you.
This has been this podcast.
And that was just
It's not-
take number one. All right. Try it again, but better.
He's directing.
Okay.
Again, faster, with more feeling.
That's Jake's thing.
Yeah. So this
You get
idea,
it, guys.
you get it. This idea came from just thinking about storytelling as a whole, and
I'll really do it again if you want. I
No.
butchered it.
no, it's fine.
Okay. I only did it because you kind of did it on mine.
Butchered it.
Yeah.
I gave it my all.
I know.
But that doesn't mean you didn't butcher.
Right.
Like, trying does
Like
not.
I really did too, but I hadn't read it before.
That's true.
So
No, it's fine. So this idea came from just thinking about storytelling as a whole and how much we spend our time talking about stories that have impacted us. But I didn't want to talk about it in terms of just being a fan of something. I wanted to talk about it on a deeper level because I personally believe stories do have impact on our lives, not just in a superficial entertainment way, but I kind of wanted to delve into that and see if there were any in particular that you guys had in the past. For the parameters of this discussion, we're just going to stick to books, shows, or movies. Documentaries could be included in that. There's more kinds of stories out there, people's personal stories that they share with us or whatnot, but for this discussion, we're going to keep it simple and talk about these kind of media-related versions of storytelling. So why do you guys think stories have such a profound impact on us?
My dilemma with this is, and I guess it would just be the dilemma with the parameter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can trace back why a story would be profound to you without going outside of pop culture or media.
Mm-hmm.
Because a story in its essence, let's say let's say a first story that would be passed down is from your family, let's say.
Yeah.
Or
Well, we can talk about stories.
Okay.
I guess I meant the parameters of the examples we're going to use, like our personal examples of the ones of impact.
Okay.
That one is what I wanted to limit.
Okay.
But we can talk about storytelling as a whole when it comes to like why is it profound?
yeah.
You know. So
Okay.
go ahead.
That was it. I mean, I think
Okay, Jake.
That's
I
it.
think I think the thing that makes them, so zooming back out from created stories, magazines, movies, books, I think the thing that makes them profound is the level of personal connection that you would have to a story. So again, I think the stories that mean the most to me are the ones that like involve either someone in my family at an early age, or it's like grandpa's telling a story that I was never there for about great grandpa, or like all of that. Those are the stories that, and even if they're like insignificant, they mean more to you than like the most well-crafted, enthralling written story.
Sure.
So it's like,
But do you feel
putting those things, that level of being able to imitate that level of personalization in art is what makes things really good.
so you feel like it's storytelling, like mass storytelling's connection to the personal
Sure.
is what makes it
Always going to be the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's well, Drake doesn't do very many interviews anymore, but it's like last Rolling Stone or Double XL interview he did or whatever. It was kind of like an expose. It was like right after Nothing Was the Same, and he was talking, and the article was talking about how Drake, we're not like charged up. We never like started from the bottom. We never, like have truly believed like YOLO, you know what I mean? But Drake does such a good job of writing about the central like human emotions that control those situations, or like those emotions come from. So I think that's why storytelling is powerful. It's because really they're about emotions. They're about real, actual, universal. Everyone knows what joy is. Everyone knows what despair is. Everyone knows what hopelessness is. Everyone knows what hope is. I think that's what makes good storytelling so powerful, is that you can relate to it on a deep level. So no matter what the subject, the setting, or whatever.
Sure.
It's, so
You can't relate to Dune.
right, exactly.
I think you made that point whenever we were reviewing it. You can't really relate to it, like practically, but all of the, like the father-son relationship and the mother-son and all of that is relatable.
Yeah.
And like class distinctions and
different
all of
factions
that stuff is relatable, even though it's a science fiction movie set in who knows when. You know,
so I think that's why, for me especially, is why storytelling is powerful. So
I mean, I think I agree with both of you guys. I think it's designed to be a way for all of us to connect to each other and relate to one another. I think it's how we can understand our world around us, because I think without story, because story simplifies things down. To tell a true story fully true with all of the facts would be almost overwhelming, I think.
it would take the exact amount of time that it took to actually happen.
Yeah.
So storytelling inherently simplifies and makes it consumable in some way and understandable. And I think obviously all of us being Christians, we can look back to how God communicates to us through the Bible. It's a story, and it's not it is separate books, but it tells one story of the world
Yeah.
and who we are and what it all means, you know? So I think it's almost on like a biological level that we need stories to process things, you know? I know people talk about certain movies that relate to something that they've been through really help them like process the thing that they went through, you know?
Yeah.
Or, I've
The
heard
same thing could be said about music too. Like if you've
Sure.
got a song that has a really impactful verses, like beginning, middle, and end, and some people write like that.
Yeah.
So that can be super impactful too.
Sure. And I would say music is a form of storytelling. It's even more simplified and more
Sure.
broad strokes of feelings and emotion than a narrative, but some people do write in sort of a narrative form or writing something relatable and specific.
Yeah.
So, do you guys personally feel like stories impact you on that level, or whenever you kind of intake a story, do you look at it more like as an observer? You're not like really being pushed around emotionally by a story that you're watching. I mean, I think for me, it really depends on the story, you know?
It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the performances have to grip you. You have to believe them. If you're talking about a show or a movie,
Or the characters of a book.
Yeah, and the other thing is with that medium, you're using everything. The music needs to grip you at the same time as it all has to work together. Like the production team needs to be just as good as the performers.
Yeah.
Because if something you don't buy something, then you're lost. Especially in a drama where you're talking about being enthralled or being gripped by something, you really have to believe that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just you get pulled out of that a lot faster than you do like a comedy, because you're already out of a comedy. You don't really like investing in a comedy, right? So I think when you're talking about visual medium, it relies on everyone. It relies on all of it. It can't just be a good story.
Right. Yeah, that medium requires all of those other things to tell the story well.
Yeah.
You know, just like in a book, someone might have a good idea for a story, but can't execute it well.
Yeah.
You know, or
there's a lot of authors like that.
there's a great execution, but they don't have a story. You know, I feel that
I feel
way.
like that about Steinbeck sometimes.
Yeah.
He's a great writer. Great writer.
And I feel that way sometimes about Ernest Hemingway as well. A lot of that era of writers kind of drifted into not really having a story. It's just a character.
Prose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catcher in the Rye, I think, is a prime example of it. Didn't have a story. He had a character idea, and he just did things.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like I think Game of Thrones is that way. I feel like he's got characters that are interesting, a world that's interesting, but his plots just go wherever. He's not telling
There's no
solid
moral
narrative.
purpose or like any backbone.
He's not telling a solid narrative. He's not really saying anything. So, Jacob, thoughts on all that?
I feel like I'm more of a passive observer. I think I love story, but the hard thing for me to take from it is like a proactive approach after I see it. You know, there'll be things that most of the time when I'm ever moved during a movie, it's like, or show, right? But I feel like movies they are more, you know, they have more weight in terms of pushing me around, in terms of like how I behave in terms of.
That's interesting. I think most
compared
people
to
would.
shows,
I think
I
most
guess.
people would say shows do that more for them because they spend more time within that world. They get more invested into it. You know.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. We've touched on in the past how, in terms of television, I'm more of a comedy person. So maybe that could be why.
Yeah.
But I think the moments where I'm, feeling an overwhelming sense of like, oh, I need to blah blah blah, or I should blah blah blah. Well, it's just like when specific character moments. It's nothing like when I walk out of a movie. It's just like this one specific action is, oh, that was powerful or whatever.
Yeah.
Other than that, I feel like on a macro level, I am an observer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even answer the question. I'm sorry. I would consider myself more of an investor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably more. That's what I get from, especially going to a movie. I think I would much rather invest fully in that amount of time, rather than like analyze or. And it's not even what I'd rather. It's just, I guess, how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So, and I agree with Jake. I think movies do that way more to me than shows do, for sure.
I think if that's the case, especially for you, because I like to get engrossed in them too. I think it's easier to do that for me with movies. Whereas television is just dip your toe in, leave.
Well,
dip your toe in,
that's
leave,
true.
And in the back of your mind, this isn't the end of the story when you're watching a TV show.
Yeah.
So you've
Yeah.
got a finite amount of story left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's kind of a mixture. It's harder for me now than it used to be to really get like swept up into the story of a movie or a show even. I feel like I'm much more of a passive observer than I used to be, because the examples that I have for these things are from when I was much younger watching stuff. And I just feel like now going through film school, wanting to make and tell stories myself, when I go to watch something, I'm much more analytical and more critical. I'm looking at it from the eye of someone of like, how can I learn from this person's mistakes or successes when they were telling their story, more so than I want to jump into this story and just like be a part of it. I feel like the older I've gotten, I've become much more of a passive observer. But I would think,
Does that depress you?
No.
Okay.
I think
It sounds.
I think
kinda
if
sad.
something is really
It sounds sad.
if something is really good, it'll break through that. Because the other problem is I've seen so many things that it's very quick. My mind is very quick to be like, I've seen this kind of thing before, and then
You need to train yourself to turn that
not-
off a little bit.
Yeah,
Because I
maybe.
feel the same way when let's say, you
look at Marvel Phase 5 and you go, I've seen all of this before.
I mean, you can go, let's say you go to a concert, you go to a music show. So you can feel that way too of like, yeah, I know what chords he's playing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, shut that part of your brain off and just enjoy it. Listen to someone bearing their soul, or how many thousands of hours they put into writing, how the back and forth of their life led them to write these lyrics. All of these things led up to this chord progression. It's like, and Jake has said this before too. It's like, when you try to do something like that, you immediately earn or gain a level of respect for people that do it as well.
Yeah.
That's like immediate.
Yeah.
Like if you try to write something, you will have a much higher respect for writers almost instantly.
For sure. Yeah, I don't intend to have the mindset that I do going into things. I feel like
All I'm saying is you can control it.
maybe.
You can.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Ecclesiastes, right? It's like, is there anything new under the sun?
Yeah.
Right.
If you like, there's the outro of "Wonderful, Wonderful." The Killers is like, have all the songs been written?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's Brandon Bank basically saying like, if it takes one more song to get through to what I'm trying to get to, then I'll keep writing if I
Yeah.
have to. And it's like, That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And in the same way with stories, it's like they're all the same.
Yeah.
Got a protagonist. You've got an antagonist. Good versus evil is almost in every one of them.
So yeah, I feel like I'm an observer, but I don't feel like it's for the same reasons that you said, which is interesting. I wouldn't have thought that would have been.
I think to me it's.
And I guess we're not ganging up on you, but it's just like, it's so fun to just like.
I just don't. I wouldn't want you to.
I completely agree.
I wouldn't want you to lose that part of you.
Don't get me wrong. Me being analytical about something doesn't mean I'm not enjoying it. It just means I'm not necessarily lost in it.
So analytical isn't always critical.
And critical isn't always necessarily saying this is bad or I'm not liking this. Critical is just like, I think critical and analytical I'm thinking of essentially the same way.
Nice, got a touch in.
Sweet. You might have thrown it out of focus. Critical and analytical, I think I'm thinking of similarly, of just like analyzing, looking at the parts that worked and the parts that didn't.
See, that's weird. I feel like analyzing and criticizing are very different things.
Criticizing is different.
But that's what critical is.
Thinking, I don't think is necessarily the same thing. I don't know. That's kind of off the beaten path. But
it's on
all that to say, I think for me,
right there, analytical versus critical.
For me, I think if something can really like spark my imagination or the creative part of my brain, because like, I've never thought about this subject in this way, or I've never seen this tackled in this way. It might not be the most original story, but it's doing something well or doing something differently that engages me in a different way than being lost in it. And I feel like for me, like I was watching Nope, just because it's the most recent thing we've seen. I was watching Nope with that critical eye a little bit, with the analytical mindset, but I was still enjoying it, and I felt like I ended up enjoying it more than you did. I know, but I was still thinking about it critically. I wasn't super emotionally invested, which that might be partially why I didn't feel a need to be emotionally invested. I don't necessarily feel that need all of the time to emotionally like really get into something. I don't always feel that need,
I think.
But if a movie does it to me, like if a movie works,
as long as you're going in and your funnel's this way, open, and not the other way around.
No,
I think
I'm sorry if I made it sound like that was the way I was thinking. It's really not.
As long as it starts shaving off if certain things happen as you're watching, you're like, man, I don't really.
Yeah.
That is, I think that's healthy. But I think if you're going in,
my funnel for shows is much more like that. Just because there's so much time investment needed, I want it to be good and grab me fast. Otherwise, I don't want to waste my time. Movies, I'm much more the other way, because I don't know. What do you mean?
I feel like you have a reverse funnel for trailers. And if that doesn't grab you, you're never going to go into the theater with your normal funnel.
That's true.
But that has nothing to do with the story. That's just like interest level, I suppose, right?
I guess that's what thing I partake of.
If it gets you there, then your funnel is...
Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to say, is like,
yeah, I mean, but that's also on them. Make the movie look appealing. You know what I mean? And if you're not making it look appealing or interesting or different, that's separate from like, am I coming into this movie ready to be invested or be analytical? You know what I mean? That's, anyways, kind of a...
What story are you telling with your trailer, really, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is a trailer. Okay, you guys see the Oppenheimer trailer?
Have we done the best and worst trailers episode yet? We should do that soon.
Yeah, it's in the ether.
It's in the works.
I thought we did an episode about trailers.
Not best and worst. I think we did.
We talked about trailers as a whole, right?
how bad they are.
purpose of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not best and worst.
I
Okay.
think so. Right there.
Okay. The meat.
Oh, we're gonna get into the meat of the episode. as
Finally.
Jake would say.
Finally.
Has a story, book, TV show, movie, documentary.
I love that it says of any kind, and then it's very specific. Book, TV show, or movie.
That's why I didn't say of any kind. Ever had any impact on you that changed your way of thinking, and why? I can start if that.
I mean, I have one, but
Okay.
if you
You
want
go
to
ahead,
start,
Jake.
I would say the first one that comes to mind is a book by Blake Crouch called Recursion, and it's just like there's this part in it where it just like floored me, and it was like it implored me to. I think I talked about it. I very briefly talked about it during one episode. I don't remember what, but to just like try to get to know my parents better. as,
Oh
like,
yeah, you told
people,
me about that.
you
Yeah.
know? That's the only like thing that jumps to my mind immediately when it's like, what have you like shifted in your life tectonically, like to
Mm-hmm.
because of a story?
You thought about
read,
your parents
You know?
differently,
Yeah,
like
which
Yeah.
is crazy. So
yeah,
that's the first one that came to mind. But the best part about those moments is where you you never know when they're gonna happen.
yeah.
You know, because it's like the book's good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it lost me probably like with like 75 or 100 pages left. It just like cranked the dial up on like some like weird stuff. But I'll never forget that, you know. And it's just
Sure.
like you don't know when those moments are going to happen.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you, which is cool.
Right.
I don't know if there has. I don't know if anything's broken the barrier of it's changed the way I think about what's possible in a story. I think that's where it hits the ceiling for me is like, so let's say, what's a good example? This is just on the top of my mind, Flowers for Algernon.
Mhm.
How it's written is different than anything I had read
Yeah.
up to that point. It didn't change the way I thought about life per se. It changed the way I thought about how a book could be written.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I would translate all of those two. I think what I try to do with every part of me is interpret everything through the lens of creation and through Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I want everything I'm consuming to be compared to that.
Yeah.
Those are the stories that have changed my thinking. And I hope that continues, and I want that to continue. I'm going to do everything I can to submit myself to that. So I don't know, and I'm not saying that I was doing that when I was 11 and 12.
Sure.
So I'm sure there were stories that impacted me immensely that I probably don't remember. But as an adult, that's been my effort, is to compare what I'm consuming and what moves me. Why does this move me?
Mm-hmm.
Because these are the components of the truth
That it's conveying.
that it's conveying.
Yeah.
So it probably is symbiotic. It's probably like one and they probably work together. But I don't know if I have a specific example. There's movies that have moved me, obviously.
Yeah.
Never Let Me Go and Beautiful Boy and
Joey the Rat.
Joy the Rat, all
those
those guys. Children of Men, and I mean, there's countless movies that have like deeply impacted my emotional state. But in terms of like changing the way I act, I don't think that's the case, and I don't want that to be the case, really.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That
No,
answers
that's
the question.
interesting. Because one of my examples under this heading was Flowers for Algernon, because the thing that it made me think about differently was the idea of intelligence and a lack thereof, and how that can emotionally change somebody, and how like it made me think more empathetically towards those that are less intelligent than me.
Yeah.
Not in a like condescending kind of way, but in just like that's who they are, you know, and
not necessarily better or worse.
Right. God made them that way. And
any perception
they
of
have
better
a capacity,
or worse is based on is based on social anything.
And
it's made up.
And the idea of trying to change that to make somebody something different than they are, the way God made them, is it just made me think about that whole idea a lot more. And it also made me think about the arrogance of intelligence and the pitfalls of being an intelligent person. And because the character of Charlie, as he becomes more intelligent, he becomes more miserable, like and more
as anybody who gains knowledge and not wisdom would.
I mean,
and does.
the central like thesis of the book could almost be, is ignorance bliss? You know what I mean? And so that's how that book made me think differently about specifically intelligence and how it impacts us. The other one that I thought about was a documentary called Samsara, or sorry, Baraka. Samsara is the sequel to Baraka. It's a documentary that is just footage of various places and things and people around the world. There's no dialogue in it whatsoever. It's shot on 65 millimeter, and it's just footage kind of thematically tied together very loosely. And I saw it when I was in college, and it really made me think about my place in the world and how people on the other side of the world are not that different. You know, the circumstances might be incredibly different, belief systems might be incredibly different, but it just made me think about the connections and the similarities that make us all human, and how lucky I have been to have, and how blessed I have been to have the life that I have. Because there's people from all over the world in that documentary just living their life. There's a few shots of these children, and you have zero context of who they are or why, but you have this shot of these children just on the street somewhere, I think in Asia somewhere. And they are all orphans where the older children raise the younger children. And it's just a group of orphans that live on the street, and that's their life, you know? So it was a documentary that really made me think about the experiences of others. And up until that point, I mean, I'd grown up in a small town. Hadn't
been to Europe yet.
Hadn't been anywhere, really. Been to some places in the U.S., but I hadn't really been exposed to the life that other people around the world live. And I know that sounds like really, like, duh. People around the world are similar, and they also have different life experiences. But it was the first one to really make me, like, think about that and deal with, okay, these people on the other side of the world, they are going through all of this stuff, but they're not so different that I can't sympathize with them or connect with them in some way, just seeing this documentary. And so that was one of the first things that came to mind when writing this outline, or kind of one of the inspirations for it. Is I never had such an experience watching a movie or a documentary or whatever where while it was going on, I was just like grappling with the nature of the world, you know? And yeah, that's, anyways.
Cool. I guess I would say the one that probably has impacted me on that level is probably the Sunset Limited. Just it's just it's a very different approach that I hadn't ever encountered it's just a very realistic depiction of the way people see and relate to is there a God?
Yeah.
And I think it probably changed the way that I view both people that are of any faith and then people that don't believe in an afterlife, let's say. Because that's really what, if you boil down all of the world's religion, you're talking about, is there a higher power than you that you believe in?
Yeah. Or is there nothing?
Or nothing.
Yeah.
So I think it's just made me, I don't know, reinterpret a lot of that stuff and view people that think a lot along both lines differently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's like a real world portrayal of that philosophical, theological debate, you know?
Really well done one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You already answered this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has a story ever changed how you felt about a specific subject? I can give you, and that might be kind of a weird thing, but I can give you a specific example. The movie Blackfish, it's another documentary, and it's about orcas in SeaWorld. And I am not like a big animal rights activist, I never had a problem with the
Lock
idea of
them
like zoo.
The animals, not Wes.
Gotcha.
They've been asking for
Or
it.
I thought you meant animal rights activists.
No, I meant
them.
lock the animals up.
Okay.
No rights.
Animal rights activists with the animals.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
See how much they could fight for their rights then.
Yeah.
And just throw them in a cage with a lion. I've never been like big environmentalist, animal rights activist. I don't really care in particular about, or I didn't really care in particular about the idea of zoos or anything
Let me
like
tell
that.
you, a lot of people did after Blackfish.
Yep. And it's
Never heard of it.
It's stereotypical
Huge.
because it was a big deal at the time and
Yeah.
a lot of people saw it. But it changed specifically how I viewed animals that intelligent and using them specifically for entertainment purposes.
Sure.
Like
porpoises.
I have a hopefully a nuanced view of it. I know a lot of zoos out there are essentially doing animal rescue. You know,
Yeah.
like the animals that
For
they
sure.
have would not live in the
Sure.
wild.
More of a sanctuary.
Yes. Whereas SeaWorld is doing something very different. They're taking animals out of the wild, putting them in these places for entertainment.
Yeah.
It's a very different thing. People,
It's very rock and roll.
a lot of
Pretty
people,
freaking metal. Just everyone's on board with the mass kidnapping of these things, and everyone's like, "Let's go pay to see it." I heard they're keeping it captive. Let's go check it out.
Dude,
But
it wants to
there's-
kill you so bad.
Yeah.
But it can't.
and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in that documentary that
Harambe forever.
there's a lot of evidence to show, like, hey, this is having an actual psychological impact on these animals. They are doing things like they are acting out because they know they're in captivity. They understand because they're an incredibly intelligent animal. They literally like torture things because they're going crazy.
Yeah.
Like famously, there was a trainer that was killed by one of the orcas and was like played with, like literally was dragging him down underneath, would hold him down long enough that he would almost start to die, and then would let him go so he'd float back up, and then would grab him again and pull him back down, like literally tortured him. And so it really changed how
Metal.
I viewed this specific subject.
You're too exclusive content.
We got him. Hadn't
So,
coughed
yeah.
the whole time.
That was the thing I thought of while writing this. It's a specific subject
Mm-hmm.
and kind of altered how I viewed. Also, in paired with that of like, how do we take care of the creation that God gave us? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not really in that way. You're not really taking care of God's creation when you're using it for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
You know,
Porpoises. Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah.
Dang it. Any examples for you guys on this?
What's the question?
Has a story
The
ever
subject.
changed how you felt about a specific subject?
Nothing. I couldn't really think of anything.
There's a lot of examples of changed my level of knowledge on a subject.
Okay.
In terms of the way I felt about a subject, there's probably not. I think The Big Short, like things like that are extremely informative and really only the jumping off point to learn what actually happened.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, like Social Network or
Sure.
Yeah.
I think movies like that have impacted how my interest level and then goes up and then you want to
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
more
And
about
I think
it.
that could count because, I mean, did you care about the founding of Facebook before social
No.
network?
No.
Yeah.
And it made you
Sure.
interested. It
Steve
made you-
Jobs or
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah. I guess mid 90s comes to mind because it is a great story about how important your community is and like the people that surround you and like what they can do for you and you know how they can damage you or
Yeah.
help you heal, you know. So I think I was like, dang, that's a great story about that I absolutely cannot relate to, but it is a better depiction of like how your community, immediate community at that age specifically, you know, is so
Yeah.
important. But yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Last bigger question. Has a story ever changed the course of your life? Like you changed the decisions you made because of something you read, something you watched, anything like that?
I think if we're getting like, you know, talking about stories as a whole and like philosophical and what they can do for you, I think the biggest way that stories have changed my life, the course of my life, is they just give you an avenue to connect with other people. They just are such a great in with anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I there's things I know absolutely nothing about, like chicks that work at the coffee shop, but it's like they will talk to me about Stranger Things, you know, and it's like that's, and so you know you think about, man, you saw, you know, Matt Thompson when I didn't know who Matt Thompson was reading Goosebumps. It's like, dude, I like Goosebumps, you know, and it's that
Yeah.
simple, and then the course of your life has changed, you
Yeah.
know, at that age. Or me and you, right? It's like, I like telling stories. Well, me too.
Yeah.
Let's do that together. And then history, you know, and so it's like, I think that's the most gleaming example in my life of how
Sure.
stories in general have just like changed my life, you know, just
Yeah.
because of what they can
And there's
do.
probably infinite number of specific stories that have connected you to somebody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think if there's something that has changed the trajectory of my life, one, there's no way that I could know that. I don't think, really, because it had to be a conscious decision probably, and I don't know if there has been. I think it would all have been subconscious. So it's probably like a culmination or an accumulation of a bunch of stories that
Yeah.
have changed small decisions that I've made or something like that.
Yeah.
It's probably the most accurate. Similar to Jake's point, I think to me, the stories that impact me or would change the course of my life the most are the ones that others tell me about themselves. I think it's really close to what Jake was saying, but more specifically, like when someone opens up about themselves to me, there's nothing better to me. Like in that I can do with my time, that in terms of like taking something in, and it affecting me. I think those are the stories that, because it's just so personal and visceral right there. Whether it's good or bad, it could be a great story. It doesn't have to be like some tearjerker. It's just like, it could be, you could just see the joy in somebody telling a story, or those are the things that I think have changed the course of my life. Yeah. If I had to answer about a story.
Which you did.
Yeah, you have to. So.
For me, it's a very easy one to point to. Saving Private Ryan is a movie that I saw when I was 11 or 12, I think.
At your grandpa's house?
No.
What?
It was in Arizona.
And Mike made you watch it?
Yeah, my dad did. We were at his cousin's house.
Oh, okay.
We were at his cousin's house in Arizona, and he had Saving Private Ryan on DVD. And Dad knew I liked history, and he was like, "You should probably see this." And I did, and it changed the course of my life in that it instilled. Yeah.
He writes Tom Hanks every day.
It instilled a admiration for movies and a desire to make movies. It changed my affections for veterans, people that served, and then it also sparked even more interest for me in World War II. I've read numerous books now about World War II and watched documentaries and all that stuff. So that is the biggest example of a single movie like really impacting the trajectory of my life. Like, I probably wouldn't have gone to film school or wanted to make movies. I mean, it's possible that I would have found another avenue into that, but it was the thing that made that happen, you know, because it was such a impactful movie that made me go, oh, movies can be more entertaining, more than just entertainment. Yeah. It's like saying something important.
Thanks, Steven.
Thank you, Stevie.
As we call him here on this podcast. Is not for you.
Thank you, Steven, for your previous work. Not current.
Which is current work?
Not great stuff. We'll cut that out. Cut that.
No thinking. No thinking, Stevie.
In case Steven sees this, I don't.
We can just skip to this last question here. Is there any level where you feel like people need to be careful about how much they invest in stories? Is there danger in getting lost in stories, you think?
Yeah. I think that it's really easy to invest more in. It's easier, actually, probably, to invest in a story that is not going to harm you, not going to put you. It's not going to give you real pain of your own. It's not risky, and still get the emotional pull and the some pseudo connection to the people in the story. Yeah. Even though it's not real. Yeah. I think that's really easy to get into, and then all of a sudden you're now not living your life. Yeah. Which you are given as a gift.
This is why they call it the present.
No, that was good. I thought it was good. What do you guys think?
It was a joke.
Yeah, I think it's very dangerous. Very, very easy to. You see super fans all over the place investing thousands of dollars and all of their time and burning all of their real relationships for fake ones. So I think it's very dangerous.
The thing I always think about is that documentary, The People versus George Lucas. And at the time I saw it, I was like, it's essentially about people hating on the prequels. And at the time I saw it, I was like, yeah, George Lucas sucks because the prequels aren't good. But then as I got older and then I rewatched it not too long ago, and I was like, oh, it's kind of sad that these people are like, George Lucas ruined my childhood. It's like, no, he didn't.
Yeah, right.
He made some subpar movies. To invest your life.
Oh, we're not agreeing with them. Right. That's what yeah, absolutely. It's, yes.
You think
that's
George Lucas
crazy.
ruined your childhood?
No.
Not if you don't.
What do you guys think?
No.
I just think that to invest in a fictional narrative so much that some things that happen in that narrative that you don't like are ruining your life, then you're invested way too much because it's a fictional story.
Yeah.
You know, at least as an adult looking, maybe as a kid you can feel that way, but
Right,
like
yeah.
looking back as an adult, you should go, it's a story. Yeah, there's some bad movies in
As
it.
a kid, you
I
think
don't
it's
have to watch
possible to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
You know
That's
what
true.
I mean? That's probably why.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the prequels tell you, no, it's not.
There
You don't
is-
have
And
enough
the new ones say
Metachlorians.
that yes, it is.
Yeah.
There is no Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. So,
Spoilers.
whoa.
What's our listening demographic?
I don't know. George Lucas ruined my childhood.
I
so
click
Peyton
I
Walker.
click yes, it's for kids on every episode that I
Okay.
upload to YouTube.
Sorry, everybody.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
At least it's not around Christmas.
I don't know. I think so. I think if at any point you feel like it's tied to, you know, who you are as a person, like whether that be, you know, your character traits or that whatever happens in the world affects you directly or something, or you just you can neglect what's important. I think
Yeah.
you know, if you're too invested in, I don't know what that practically what that looks like. You know, like what does that look like? Just like spending all your time on like those subreddits and just binging it. I don't know, like every day or something, you know, because that doesn't happen, right? It's like the people that, you know, I guess, well, maybe it does, but, so I don't know. I don't know what a casual, like, oh, this
I
is
mean,
too much.
look
It's
at
easy to
just-
pinpoint the ones that are way over the top, but
Sure.
Like, you love The Office. Look at how much you have watched The Office, but you're not an obsessive person. You know what I mean? Imagine someone that is an obsessive person that loves The Office more than you love The Office. Like that, it's just a slight step forward. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but with a drastic difference. Like
Yeah.
The Office doesn't control your life. Your love of The Office doesn't.
yeah.
It impacts it and
Yeah.
is a part of you, but it's not who you are.
Yeah.
You know, I think some people get lost in it, and I am a Stranger Things fan. It's who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. Anyways, any other final thoughts?
That's it for me.
Stories.
Stories. They're important.
Stories.
They're impactful, meaningful. They're metal sometimes. Yeah. Thank you for listening. My name is Wes,
My name is Jake.
My name is Piotr.
and this has been This Podcast Is Not For You. Goodbye.